Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I'm Old Man Troy, joined by the marvelous youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. What's shaking today, my friend?
It's a Wednesday as we're recording this show. So for me, it is my day off. And I know, Troy, you've got some time off from your job as well. So we're recording this at an odd time, and you're recording in an odd place.
Odd time, odd place. Got stats in front of me, got it all going on. Yeah, I got some time off this week. Today was kind of a bummer day, though. I had to go to my wife's aunt's funeral. So little special place in the heart today for my wife's aunt, Nancy Glenn. She was a very good person. You know, you've met those people, Kevin, just people that are good people. And that was her aunt, just an all-around nice person. Spent the last couple of years of her life in a nursing care facility. So it was a sad day. The world lost a really good person today. So I just wanted to give a little props to Nancy Glenn today, thinking about her. I know my wife taking a little bit hard because she was really close to her aunt, but we'll get by. You know, the world is filled with unexpected oddities is what I'll call it. And we got a pretty good show today, my friend. Finishing up the Big Ten, I guess our preview, our fourth annual. I love saying the word annual, youngster. I love it. Fourth annual Big Ten preview show. We're going to the top. We did a little different this year. Last year, I think we did 3-tier shows. This year, we're doing 2 shows. I hate saying the bottom. I hate saying the bottom of the Big Ten. I really do.
Right.
But like today we do
the show we did before, and not to cut you off, but the show we did before, we did the bottom 7 quote-unquote teams from a year ago. And Ohio State was in there, and right now they're number 10 in the country. So, and last year, as a bottom 7 Big Ten team, quote unquote, they made the NCAA tournament, and I think they won their first round game. There's no real perfect way to break it up unless we were to do 14 different shows and break it up that way. But that's not what we do. Again,
I think our fans would get kind of sick of us if we did 14 shows.
Right.
And they're like, we like you guys, but not 14 times in a week. That would be a tough one. But it's going to be another good show, youngster. Just to preface everybody, this time of the year for me, college basketball, and this, youngster, I dabble in DraftKings, I dabble in sports books, so I'm following college basketball probably a little closer than I did in prior years. Problem is the point spreads on these cupcake games. Like if you're going to make any money, you've got to take the points or minus the points or whatever it is, because the money line, like on a Duke, a Duke game, is you're going to make $1.03. So like if you bet $1, you're going to make $1.03. But if you bet like they're going to cover the spread at minus 34. You might make $3. So again, I'm not betting dollars, but I'm just making it easy for the fans to know. The problem I have is I don't like those large point spreads. Like, should Duke beat so-and-so by 34? Yeah, they should. Will they? It's hard to tell.
It's just not like those spreads are always, it's up to the coach. Like, if the coach wants to start dibbling into his bench, his deep bench, and start running plays and start trying to get guys that never saw playing time, hoisting threes so that the bench can go crazy, it's like that's when Duke wins by 32 or they win by 37. So it's, to me, it's almost up to the coach, like Ohio State Rutgers. If Ohio State wanted to beat Rutgers by 80, they could have in football. Did they? No. They won by like 30, So the foot was not completely on the gas, and as expected. But
and nor should it be, to be honest with you, when you're killing a team that bad.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to throw that out there. Like I'm following it, and I probably know more in November than I have in the prior 3 years, just because I have been dabbling a little more since Sportsbook is live. The thing is, I'm not throwing down a lot of bets. I think I bet on 2 games last night. Didn't do well. Again, you know me. I bet within my means, so it's not like I'm sitting here scraping the barrel for money to go buy a rock star today. I bet within my means what's in my account. I know what I can and cannot bet, and I slow it down a little bit when I get to a certain threshold. I know some people, when we talk about sportsbook on this show all the time, so I know we haven't gotten into any lines or anything like that, but I do think it is a real addiction. If you have a gambling problem, make sure you reach out, find help. You can call 1-800-GAMBLER. Like I said, youngster, I love it. You see me tweeting out all the time because I love sportsbook now. I just love it. I dabble in it. Today I was playing flash bets. I was betting dollars on tennis points, believe it or not, just for fun. Just for fun. You know, bet $1 and see if I can make $1.75. It's pretty cool. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Big Ten basketball. Let's get into it. We got 7 teams today. This should be a good one. Take it away, youngster.
Yeah, we got the better 7 teams, so to say, from a year ago. And again, talked about Ohio State to close the last show from the bottom 7, and they're a top 10 team in the country right now. So, throw that out the window. We start today's show with Minnesota, who finished 7th in the Big Ten a year ago. The 14 teams, bottom 7 last time, top 7 this time, starting from the bottom. Going to the top, so Minnesota a year ago, 22-14 overall, 9-11. They did make the NCAA tournament. All these teams did that we're talking about today, as well as Ohio State yesterday that we talked about. And so there were 8 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament a year ago. That marked a record for the conference. So excellent job by the Big Ten. It was interesting, as we talked about, to kind of close the last show that Troy and I did for the preview, that 8-12 Ohio State in the Big Ten made the tournament, and Minnesota was 9-11 in the Big Ten a year ago, made the tournament as a 10 seed too, not 11, not 12, not playing game. They were just in, no issues. Close, obviously. 10 seed is not obviously in, but it was not an extremely close call. So anyway, Minnesota. A year ago, again, 22-14, 9-11 in the Big Ten. They lost 7 total players from last year's team. Coffey was a big one. Dupree McBrayer was a guard. Jordan Murphy was a big who did great things in and around the basket. So those guys will definitely be missed. And I know from their first 4 games, as we're recording the show, they're 1-3. That said, they have lost to Oklahoma. They've lost at Butler. They've lost at Utah. Utah basketball is decent. Everyone knows Butler basketball, and Oklahoma has its ups and downs. So not going to say there are any terrible losses here. You lose at Utah by 4. I know they've got a good coach. It seems like they make the tournament more often now than they did, 5-10 years ago. But in any case, Minnesota, again, you're losing a lot of production from a year ago. They do bring in a point guard, Troy, you may have heard the name, Marcus Carr, transferred from Pitt and sat out last year. So he transferred 2 years ago, sat out last season. And so he's a point guard from Minnesota now and averaging 14 points, I think 7 assists, 6 rebounds. So he is kind of the guy that starts up the offense. And I know that you live in Western PA, and I know you follow Pitt basketball a little bit. More than the average person does in the country because of where you're located. But so Carr will definitely be leading the offense. Daniel Oturu is a big. He's averaging 19 and 11. He's a big that returns from last year's team. As far as a recruit to look at that came in, Isaiah Inen, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's a 4-star recruit from Germany. He didn't play in the first 3 games, I think. I think he played in the last one. He got his first game in. So this team lost a lot. It brings back some interesting pieces. It brings in a 4-star recruit. And getting Marcus Carr as a transfer will definitely help ease the blow of losing guys like Coffey, McBrayer, and Murphy. Who are 3 good players, and Coffey and Murphy especially were productive for this team a year ago. So I think, to me, this is really the last thing I have on Minnesota is people coming into this year thought teams 3 through 11 in the Big Ten were kind of jumbled up, and all of them had a chance to make the NCAA tournament, and you could kind of fling around this team to that spot, that team to this spot. I think Minnesota's probably toward the bottom of it just because of the guys they lost. But Oturu is good, and Marcus Carr has shown to be productive. But again, they're 1-3 right now for a reason. I just think this team has a chance to make the NCAA tournament. I think they're going to be toward the bottom of the Big Ten as opposed to toward the top, let's say.
Yeah, they're going to need to find scoring outside of the two guys you mentioned, Turu and Carr, and I do know the name Marcus Carr, and that whole transfer thing happened when Jeff Capel came aboard. I believe it was that year that he transferred out. But you look at this Minnesota team, and it's kind of reloading. It's like, where are we going to find other scoring other than Carr and Turu? And I'm looking, and here's the nice thing about me recording in a different place, different time. Normally I'm doing this in a car on the way home. And so now I've got a chance to actually have statistics in front of me. And I look at the Minnesota stats. And usually you don't see this early in the season. But really, Kevin, it looks like 6 guys, they're going like 8 deep only already this early in the season. Normally when we're talking in November, you're talking about getting guys in to try and figure out who's going to take over a certain role on the team. It looks like what Minnesota's doing is we're trying to get some confidence. And now, again, they've played, of the teams that we've talked about so far, they've played maybe the most competitive schedule. I didn't say the toughest. Most competitive based on where their skill level is. Now, you talk about Butler, you talk about Utah, you talk about Oklahoma. Again, Oklahoma, better than average team. Some days they can play really well. Some days they don't play well. But Oklahoma, they lost to. And I think they're trying to figure out an identity this year with so many new pieces that they're only going 8 deep. Like, hey, we're playing against some good competition. We're going to treat this like it's mid-January, and we need to win these games. But as I look at the stats, I'm looking at minutes being taken up by the starters. I mean, just think about this, Kevin. 34 for Turu. Carr's playing 35. Willis at 33. Kelscher at 33. You got 4 guys near 35 minutes already in November. Almost unheard of. It's usually more around that 23, 24 minutes a game, and you're going maybe 9 or 10 deep. Not Minnesota. And so it could be a catch-22, like, hey, we're going to figure some stuff out early in the season. But, man, it's a long season, and that's a lot of minutes so far for these guys playing 34, 35 minutes. I know it's only 4 games in, but, man, that's a lot of minutes in November, Kevin. You got to get all the way to March. It's a lot of minutes on those legs. But like you, Minnesota, I think they'll be competitive. Are they an NCAA team? We'll see how the pieces fall. We talked about it yesterday. When you're near that bottom tier, the team that's going to separate themselves to be able to jump into the middle tier will be the team that can come from the bottom that nobody expected, maybe in Minnesota, but you got to take care of the teams below you. They're going to have to take care of Rutgers. They're going to have to take care of Northwestern. They're going to have to steal a game against an Ohio State or Wisconsin somewhere along the line. But they're going to be a good competitive team. You'll hear the broken record from me for the next probably 45 minutes that anytime you play in the Big Ten, you got to be ready to play. Doesn't matter if you're Michigan State. Doesn't matter if you're Purdue. Doesn't matter who you are. You go on the road to Minnesota, you better be ready to play because they're not waving the white flag.
They've got a cool venue, too. They've got a fairly unique home court advantage as well. Just the way it's colorized, as well as how much the fans get into it, as well as I think it's an elevated court as well. So it's different. It's weird.
Yeah, did you ever watch a game on TV? I've never been there in person. Ever watch a game on TV and you see the bench players? It's like you see their head.
Right.
You just see their head. It's like they're at a concert, looking up. They're in the front row of the venue, looking up at the floor. It is kind of unique, but Minnesota's a tough place to play, and they're not going to go down lightly. So you need to be ready to play. You go in there, have an off shooting night. Many heartbreaking games as a Wisconsin fan. Wisconsin going to Minnesota. Wisconsin's a better team. Oh, Minnesota got the win because Wisconsin just didn't have it on that court. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's kind of that retooling year for Minnesota, and they've got to, use what they got, bring in some guys, and I guess the word I'll use is fight through this season. Just fight through it and see where it takes them. In my opinion, Kevin, I think this is more an NIT team than an NCAA team right now. That's all I got.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When I finalized my little preview, and going over every team and going over everything I wanted to for these shows we're doing, I put together my own little Big Ten, preseason standings projection, and I have Minnesota at 10. And I think that's, again, I think they're on the outside looking in for the NCAA tournament. NIT, maybe. We'll see. But obviously, with any set of projections, I could be completely wrong. This team outperforms. They get it together. They're 8 deep, and they are very solid 8 deep, and they pull off some upsets, and they finish 5th. That's possible, for sure. And obviously, a disaster can happen, and they finish 13th. So in any case.
Well, if I can jump in there, I know we're going to move forward, but and correct me if I'm wrong. You project Minnesota at 10, Kevin, but like you said, in the Big Ten, in years past, 10th place to 6th place is probably 2 games.
Right.
Probably a 2-game difference. That's what I'm saying. If they could steal a game against an Ohio State, steal a game against the Wisconsin, all of a sudden you're talking about a 10th place team, which maybe that's where they're at. But they get those 2 big wins, and teams 9, 8, and 7 are on the same playing field as them. All of a sudden Minnesota vaults them, and they are number 6 in the conference because it's been that way for the last couple of years. You take a look at the standings, and it's not like just early in the season, like, oh, yeah, 1 game separates 1st and 9th place. Yeah, it's always going to happen in January. But we're talking at the middle of February. You look at the Big Ten standings, and we'll look at them this year, more than likely. I mean, there's probably a couple teams that are going to separate themselves near the top. But when you start looking at 3 through 9, 3 through 8, 8th place might be like 2 games out of being in 4th place or 2 games out of being in 3rd place. That's the way the conference rolls. And that's another reason I love the conference. You can carry on.
6th last year was Iowa. They had 10 losses, and 9th was Indiana. They had 12, so they were 2 games back. If you go back to 10th, then Penn State at 13th, they were 3 back. But once you get in this middle section, it's interesting. And there was a big difference between the 5th team and the 6th team a year ago. Maryland had 7 losses. Iowa had 10. But then you start looking at, the difference between Maryland and Wisconsin and Michigan, a 2-game separation there. And so, you could finish 3rd in conference, you could finish 6th. It's always fun in the Big Ten that way. Moving on to Iowa. Iowa was a team a year ago that I definitely pulled for. That team, I liked every single player that played 1 through 11, it seemed like. Maybe it was only 10, but it seemed like 11 players that got decent minutes on last year's team. And last year's team, they finished 23-12, 10-10 in the Big Ten. So at 500, and they finished 6th in the conference. They were a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. Again, I think they won their first round game. But so for Iowa, they lost Tyler Cook to the NBA. He was a very nice big, kind of like Jordan Murphy-esque in the sense that, they're not taking threes, but they're very good in and around the basket, can rebound. So that's definitely a notable loss. But Iowa does return 9 players. They have a lot of bigs. They have a lot of talented guys that return. Joe Wieskamp is a guy I liked a lot last year as a freshman. He may have gotten drafted a year ago as a freshman. If he came out, he returned, which I think is smart. If you're wavering on being drafted or not, I think it's smarter to come back and prove yourself as a draft pick. But I do think he's eventually in the NBA. One thing to note, too, Jordan Bohannon is a point guard. He had hip surgery in May, and kind of the thought was, well, hopefully he's back and hopefully he's healthy. And so far this year he's played, I think, in every single game. So I think, he has played in every single game. So that helps. But so this team, as far as what they are, Luka Garza has – when he came in as a freshman a couple years ago, I remember he was massive.
You're stealing my thunder bringing up Garza already. You're not even going to let me talk about how much I love Mr. Garza.
He was – I'll finish this point. He was massive coming into – and let me see how big he is. I don't think he's – he's only 6'11", but 6'11",
he plays big, though, Kevin. He plays as big as that 6'11" frame lets him, if not bigger.
Yeah. 6'11", 260, and I don't know if that's accurate, but even a year ago, he was probably over 300 pounds. 2 years ago, absolutely over 300 pounds. He has definitely shed weight. You could tell even last year, getting up and down the court with less weight on his body, you could still tell he was like slower in general because he's just used to being so much bigger and heftier in that sense, not size-wise. 6'11" is big. But there are bigs in this conference that are 7 foot, 7'1", 7'3". We're going to talk about someone. So 6'11" is just, that's the biggest guy on the court, but there are bigger out there for sure. But so just agility-wise, for me, it seems like he keeps on trimming down, and he is getting better and better and better, and he's a junior now, and so far he's averaging 21 and 10. That's, you average 21 and 10, for a season. That's very good stuff. Obviously, for the first 3 games in a college basketball season, when you're playing some teams you never heard of, it's different. And I'll say that this team's 2-1. They lost to DePaul by 15 points. That kind of raises an eyebrow, giving up 93 points to DePaul. Typically, Iowa's defense has been a little suspect as of late. I know last year they played better defense. That's what helped them actually get into the tournament for once. Last year's team was very good, and this year's team returns a lot of the same players outside of Tyler Cook, who again went to the NBA. But I think Garza is going to be the stud inside, and then they've got a lot of good players around him. So I like this team a lot a year ago. I like this team a lot this year. They're probably going to be of the same level because you've got all the same guys returning. You lose an NBA body. That hurts. But again, you've got so many different guys being able to step up and grow, strength-wise, maturity-wise, playing-wise, under the same coach, in the same system, with the same guys. Year after year after year, something's going to happen. And last year it did for them. Again, they made the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while, and I think this year they make it as well. So I'll let you go, Netra.
Oh no, I look at this team, and it's a typical Iowa type team. You got to have the big, right? And Garza's that guy. But like you said, the thing is, we mentioned this on our other show. It's been kind of neat watching these guys grow up in front of our eyes and, grow up or fall flat on their face. And Garza's a guy, you look at what he's doing, Kevin, that 6'11" frame, and now you got this guy out there 4 of 8 from three-point land. I mean, you put a 6'11" guy out there that's supposedly air quoting your center that can shoot 4 for 8. Now, again, against lesser opponents, but it's still a threat. Think about getting your big out from beneath the hoop. If he's going to go out and be able to knock down a shot from three-point land, or at least attempt one, and he makes, when he comes back to earth, maybe that percentage goes down to 35%. But still, as a center, you shoot 35%, and you can pull a big. You pull a big out from beneath the hoop. That is definitely a weapon to have. And this guy, like you said, I know it's early in the season. 4 games are 3 games in for them, right? 3 games, I believe. I looked away for a minute and clicked off the page. 21 and 10, maybe not that impressive, but it's just, again, Kevin, I caught a little bit of the highlights. Looks like this guy has committed himself to possibly trying to get to the next level. Like you said, shedding the weight, trying to get up and down the court, all-around game, being able to go outside, shoot the 3. I think he leads the team in steals, too. Again, I clicked off the page, but I think he leads the team in steals. When you got a center that's got active hands, Kevin, you played basketball. What was more annoying when you got in the paint? A big that put his hands up and you could drive around him or try to draw a charge, or a center that has active hands, a center that's moving and knows how to play defense. That's disruptive. He's not just a big lug in the middle of the court. This guy is active under the hoop. And I really believe that this is an NCAA quality team, and I believe they can even be a little better in the Big Ten this year, but I think a lot depends on what happens with Garza in the middle. Now, he's going to run up against some big competition in the Big Ten, but if he can win those battles, you could see Iowa, and we talk about teams separating themselves out of tiers, if he plays at a level that he's at right now and can even get better, you could see, Kevin, Iowa maybe pushing in that 4th, 5th, 6th place, somewhere in there. Maybe, I don't know about 3rd, but being that team in that 4, 5, 6, 7 group that is near the top. And maybe you find them maybe with a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. But I think a lot of that depends on how Garza plays in the middle. Yeah, he's got a good supporting cast, but we all know how much bigs mean in the game of college basketball. They're important in the NBA too, but to me, Kevin, if you have a dominant big in college basketball, you're probably going to win more games than you lose. And so I think a lot of it depends on his success in the middle. He's got to have guys on the outside knocking down shots. Otherwise, it'll be a lot easier in the middle to defend him. But if this Iowa team can find a way to have him dominate, you could see him. We could be talking about him a lot as having a really good season in that upper third of the Big Ten Conference, and I believe that's where they want to go. So I'm excited to see what Iowa does this year.
Yeah, along with Illinois, I'm excited to see as well. For me, my little quick projections, I have them as 4th. And again, I may be a little high on that. Like you said, top 3 probably pushing it. I think the top 3 teams right now, as they are, Michigan State, Maryland, Ohio State, just in terms of ranking, that feels good, that feels right. And then maybe 4 through whatever. You can throw a hat, a name in a hat and just pull it out, and there's your team that's 4th, there's your team that's 7th. But yeah, that's, I'm higher on Iowa than probably most people. Anyway, moving on to Maryland. Maryland a year ago was 23-11, and again, this is where the separation starts. They were 5th in conference. Iowa was 6th, but Maryland finished 13-7 as opposed to 10-10 Iowa. Maryland was a 6 seed as opposed to Iowa's 10 seed. So this was a team that had plenty of talent a year ago. You could make the argument they were younger. This year's team, they started 7th in the AP poll in the preseason. Now they're up to 6th. And they lost Bruno Fernando, the big. You were just talking about, how much bigs mean, and Bruno Fernando was definitely a big that Maryland had now in the NBA. And so it's like, okay, well, what happens now? And you return basically everybody else outside of Fernando from a year ago. So this team is very talented at the guard spot with Cowan at point guard. Ayala is a very nice off guard. Wiggins was a freshman a year ago. Now he's a sophomore. He'll, I'm assuming, only get better. Jalen Smith, now a power forward. He's probably the go-to guy inside, but he can step out a little bit as well. Those 4 players are all probably very good. Wiggins is more of a projection, but Smith has already showed a year ago that he's good. Ayala showed a year ago he's good. Cowan, people know Anthony Cowan. So it's just a matter of this team growing and getting better like they should. And if they should, then this team should be in the top 3 of the Big Ten. This team, some people think Maryland's actually better than Michigan State. And part of that may be because of Josh Langford, and if he's not healthy and ready to go at any point, do I think Maryland could beat Michigan State on any night? Absolutely. They've got that much talent, and again, guard, forward, it doesn't matter. And familiarity with the head coach and the system, and they're an older group now. So if there's a time for Maryland to break through and get in the top 2 of the Big Ten and maybe win a Big Ten tournament and maybe get to a Elite 8, Final 4, do I think they're a top 4 team in the country? Maybe not. But all it takes is one upset somewhere to differentiate an Elite 8 team from a Final 4 team. So I wouldn't say it's impossible. Would I say they're better than Michigan State? Probably not. But I see where people are coming from a talent perspective at the top anyway. And this team is deep as well. Just from the 4 games they've played so far, they've got, 3, 6, 7, 8 guys averaging 10 minutes, 10 guys averaging 9+. So this team's deep, and they've got a number of other guys I haven't even mentioned, as I just said with the minutes. They've got other pieces as well that can contribute. So this team, top to bottom, is very good. They only lose 1 piece from a year ago. They're a more veteran-laden team now. So sky is the limit for the Terrapins.
Well, what scares me with this team, Kevin, it's two things. Jalen Smith is probably a guy that's going to try to fill that void left. I mean, he's the guy that they're going to look to and try to get the ball into, and this is a guy that's going to rebound the ball. Right now, again, you look at the minutes, the guy's 15 and 9. I would imagine over the course of the Big Ten season, he's going to average a double-double. I like Jalen Smith. And then I think the wild card here is Cohen. If this guy can score and dish the ball, Maryland's going to be tough to beat. You see Cohen, if you look at the stat line of Cohen after a game, and I know right now he's averaging 5.5 assists, again, against opponents that are not going to be as tough as the Big Ten. But if you look at this guy's stat line at the end of the game, and he's got 12 to 15 points and 5 to 8 assists, Maryland probably won the game.
Yeah.
So you look at a guy that can dish the ball and score, and the thing with Cohen, he's not afraid to get in by the hoop either, Kevin. This guy will go inside, and he'll battle with the bigs to get rebounds. So I love this kid as a guard. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think if
go ahead. You can say Cassius Winston is the best point guard. I guess I forgot he was in the conference, but Anthony Cowan is quicker for sure than Cassius Winston. I think Cassius Winston.
Well, Winston's going to get the play, Kevin, because he's at Michigan State, and he's got the pedigree behind him. Nobody really. I mean, you look at a good player like Cohen. This is a guy that's just, to me, a blue-collar guy, and you know how much I love blue-collar guys. And he plays for Maryland, which is a team that, in basketball they get a little recognition, but they don't get the recognition of a Michigan State. I would imagine a lot of our listeners right now don't even know who Anthony Cohen is.
Maybe not.
How much did we hear about Cohen last year?
Yeah, he's as talented as Cassius Winston is. If he spent 4 years with Tom Izzo and Michigan State system and being at Michigan State instead of Maryland, like you were saying, everyone would know who he is. I think anyone who's a Big Ten fan probably knows who he is, but he's not a national name yet. I don't think, unless you're invested in college basketball. But he's as talented to me as Cassius Winston.
If we're talking at the end of the year, and again, we always got to asterisk when we're doing this preview show at the end of November, right? So you got Cohen's line: 12.3 points, 4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 0.8 steals. If that is his stat line at the end of the Big Ten year, Maryland did well. Yeah. Maryland will be a top 3 team. I mean, that's one heck of a stat line. He's doing it in 29 minutes too. I mean, he's leading the team in minutes. But, I mean, this is a guy that's an all-around player. And I just like this kid. So you look at him, team him up with Smith, like you said, there's a lot of pieces on this Maryland team. And I believe their latest ranking was 6th. Yep. But I don't know how much people are believing in Maryland. Again, you look at the wins, and they're not against big-name opponents. I don't know how much, I'll air quote, respect people are giving Maryland. But when you really dig into it, this is a really good team, Kevin. Can they knock off of Michigan State? Sure. I mean, you brought it up, and I wanted to jump in. I bit my tongue. I'm like, no, wait till I get to talk. But you remember the year we were talking about, can Michigan State go undefeated?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? They still dropped games in the Big Ten.
Oh yeah.
Because this conference is so good, and I know I sound like a Big Ten homer. We're doing a Big Ten show for 4 years, so maybe I'm a little bit homerish when it comes to the Big Ten. But man, this Maryland team, Kevin, could they beat Michigan State? Yeah, they could. Are they a better team than Michigan State? I'm not ready to pass the torch yet. But you don't know what's going to happen. You got another Ohio State team, so let's say Maryland beats Maryland beats Michigan State, Ohio State beats Michigan State. Let's say there's going to be maybe an upset down the road in Iowa, Wisconsin that knocks off Michigan State. That's 3 losses.
Yeah. And
man, all of a sudden there we're looking at Maryland on top of the Big Ten. Could very well happen. I'm not going to, go on to Sportsbook and pick Maryland to win the Big Ten, but those probabilities are there. We've talked about 7-8 teams in this or when we're done, it'll be 7 or 8 teams in this conference. That literally, in my mind, Kevin, if everything goes right, when you start talking about teams 5, 6, 7, and 8, that can take down a Maryland, that can take down a Michigan State if things go right on any given night. That's how good this conference is. That's all I got.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing I wanted to mention, too, and I meant to kind of start the show with this. I meant to start the first preview show that we did with this, is that the three-point line, for those that don't know, and I had forgotten about this over the offseason. I knew they were doing it, but I forgot about it until I heard, I think, opening night when I was watching college basketball, and the three-point line got moved back to the FIBA line. So it did move back a couple feet, and, you know, for people thinking that doesn't really make a difference, I think it can, because if you do have guards especially that jacked up threes before and have that mindset that, I'm a shooter, I can shoot it, I can make it. If they have that same mindset now as opposed to last year and they didn't get better as a three-point shooter, then your percentages dip even more. And that means more defensive rebounds for the other team and less possessions and less efficiency. So I think that the smarter teams this year, especially with the new rule changing this year and affecting the three-point line that way, I do give more of a upper hand a little bit to the smarter guards on any given team. Like if Maryland's guards were undisciplined, like the Cleveland Browns have a bunch of talent on their roster, but they're not disciplined. And if there was some random rule change in the NFL that was fairly significant, like, hey, now it's 1st and 15 instead of 1st and 10, like it just something stupid like that, random that I make up. But it's something like that where an undisciplined team can think, yeah, well, you know, it is what it is. We'll change, whatever. We are who we are. We're talented, you know, and try to overcome it. And they don't adapt as well as maybe a Michigan State backcourt, maybe a New England offense would do, and adapt and be smart about it. So not saying that I'd nick any of these teams or give an extra bump up. Maybe I do for Michigan State, but it's just something to know, is that the three-point line moved back. I guess I won't get into it any further, but it's just something to know as a college basketball fan going into the season. Anyway, for Wisconsin, that is.
Did you happen? I don't mean to get off the tree trunk.
No,
Did you happen to hear what Bob Higgins from West Virginia? I don't remember the exact, but he was basically saying, "Are we becoming Europeans?" About the three-point line. Did you get a chance to hear any of that? I caught a little bit on 93.7 The Fan here in Western PA, and it was just hilarious. You know, Higgins, he's an old school guy. He's one of the, you know, winningest coaches in NCAA history, and he was talking about the three-point line, and to paraphrase, and again, I'm paraphrasing. These are not his words. The paraphrasing was basically to the point, we invented the game. It's our game. What are we becoming, Europeans, or something along those lines? So, you know where Higgins stands with the three-point line. You know, he wants the Americans to have the rules. So, I just thought it was a funny little story and a funny little comment, because he's never one to shy away from a good comment in the media either.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could go off, you know, more about it, but due to people not wanting to listen to us for 16 hours straight here, move on to Wisconsin. Again, last year they were 4th in the Big Ten. Maryland was 5th. Wisconsin 14-6 in conference, as opposed to Maryland's 13-7, 23-11 overall, exactly like Maryland. But that one game difference, well, that's what gets you the 4th place Big Ten finish. That's what gets you a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. So just one game out of the 20. You know, instead of a buzzer beater loss, you get a buzzer beater winner. You know, that can help you get a double bye as opposed to one bye. And then maybe that pushes you along up an extra seed line for the NCAA tournament. You know, and, you know, matchups break the way they do. And all of a sudden one Big Ten game randomly in December can be a major difference, you know. So I know I said on the last show that not every game, you know, means a ton in college basketball, and somewhat that's true, but you can certainly make the argument that one game here or there can definitely make a difference for a team, breaking the right way or not. But anyway, for Wisconsin, obviously last year they had Ethan Happ. This year they do not. That is the main storyline with Wisconsin, I guess. The season opener, they lost to St. Mary's by 2 points. That was a top 25 team.
Tough loss.
They're 3-1 now. They beat Marquette by 16 points. I recorded that game. I did not watch that game yet. I still have to, throw it on in the background while I'm working at some point. But curious to see how Wisconsin won that game by 16 points. I was able to avoid that outcome until I had to look more into these teams. So that was frustrating to find out. But Wisconsin beating Marquette by 16 is notable because Marquette's got scorers and they've got talent for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how that game played out. But in any case, again, Ethan Happ is gone, and Nate Rovers is kind of the big that steps into that role, I guess, if you want to say, as the go-to big. He's 6'11". As far as this year, what he's averaging, can look it up very quickly, 14 and 6. Nothing overly dominant, but again, this team's got a number of different shooters around him, and that's what it all comes down to. I don't expect Rovers to be Ethan Happ, but I expect him to be good. But it's all up to Brad Davison and Kobe King and Pritzl and Dimitri Trice on the guard spot to step up, get better from they were a year ago, and help fill that void. And we've seen this.
Wow, did you just mention 4 guards for Wisconsin, Kevin?
Yeah, I did.
So
4 guards all seeing.
I'm going to jump in here real quick before I lose my train of thought. It is what I want to talk about with Wisconsin. Kaminsky, Happ. I'm naming a couple big guys, and I just mentioned you have to have a dominant big in college basketball. This is a Badger team that I'm going to have to get used to watching this year, Kevin. There's really it's not the old Wisconsin Badger basketball that I'm used to seeing for the past 8 years, where they can pound it in the post and get points in the paint rather easily. This is a team that's going to live and die by shooting, Kevin. 88 threes in 4 games already. 88 three-pointers attempted, 22 a game. If they're going to be shooting well, they're going to win.
Especially now that the line's moved back. That's a lot.
88 attempts. Yeah. Because they don't have the presence of a dominant big guy. You mentioned Rovers. He's a big and maybe an above average one, but he's not a guy that's going to take over a game. Not like an Ethan Happ, not like a Kaminsky. This is a Badger team that does not have a dominant big. They're going to have to rely on the three-point shooting. And you and I both know, Kevin.
Yep. Yeah, they've got 6 different guys shooting at least 33% from 3, which is fine. That's fine. You have to respect 33% three-point shooters. In the NBA, the number has moved up over the years. But 33% in college, that's fine. You have to respect it. You can't leave someone wide open. That makes a third of their threes. Otherwise, that percentage obviously goes up if they're wide open. But so, yeah, they've got a number of guys that can shoot it.
Yes. Well, my problem is you live and die by the three-pointer. You live and die by the outside shot. I've lived through Wisconsin Badger years that way, Kevin, and it's not good. It's just not. So I think people might be higher on the Badgers than I am this year. Last year, I was probably a little higher on the Badgers than most people were. I thought they did well. They might even overachieve from where I thought with that record last year, because I thought a lot of guys had to step up from the outside to help Happ. The problem I have this year is there's nobody in the middle. I mean, is Rovers going to have some games where he dominates? Sure. But it's not going to be on a night in and night out basis. If I'm Michigan State, I mean, am I going to focus all my attention there? No. This is a guy, Kevin, that until he's starting to beat you is not going to warrant a double team. Ethan Happ, at the beginning of the game, it warrants a double team. Kaminsky warranted a double team. You could try to play him straight up. You could try to play him up straight up man-man or in the zone, but eventually you had to drop a guy and double those guys up because they could dominate in the paint. The Badgers don't have a guy that can do that. Teams are going to let the Badgers shoot and see what happens. That's if I was coaching against them, that's what I'd do. Yeah, 33% is good. 33% is really good, but what happens if they shoot 20%? They're done. They're done. Where are they going to manufacture points? I have a feeling, and you know me, Kevin, I'm a die-hard Badger fan. Born and raised in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the Badgers are my team. This is a team that's going to probably be around 500 in the Big Ten, maybe can slip into the NCAA tournament. Depends on how they do in the non-conference. And if they're around 500, you and I talked about it already. But again, a lot of things got to happen across the country for a team below 500 in the conference to get into the big dance. I think this is a bubble team, Kevin. I don't think they're guaranteed an NCAA tournament. And it's not because they don't have players. I love Kobe King. I think Trice is a good player. Davison, solid guard play. But what happens when you play a Michigan State that has a lockdown defense, that's going to contest three-point shooting? Are you going to shoot 35% from the three-point line? No.
Then you lose.
So my problem with this Wisconsin team is, okay, you're going to have to take care of business against the Rutgers, the Northwesterns, the Penn States, and you're going to have to sweep those teams below you because you're going to struggle against those teams above you, the Marylands, the Michigan States, the Ohio States, the Michigans. It could be a long season for me, Kevin, and I'm just being real. I mean, I like the team, but without that dominating inside presence, I think this is a 500 team in the conference. I'm putting them in that middle tier, 6 to 9. And if they fall below in that 8-9 spot, they may be on the outside looking in when it comes to invitation tournament time. And I hate to say that. You know me, Kevin. I'm a die-hard guy. I love my Badgers. I'm just worried. I'm worried what happens when they're not hitting the three-point ball. That's all I got. I probably got a little long-winded, but the Badgers are my team.
They are. So that's expected. For me, I think I'm a little higher than you are. You said 6 through 9. I have them 6th in my little, BS projections I did. But so I think they're in the NCAA tournament. Is it possible they miss it? Yeah. Again, it sounds like I'm a little higher than you are. But 6th place last year in the Big Ten was Iowa, and Iowa was 500 in conference. So, they finished 10-10, and they were 6th. And that could be Wisconsin this year. 10-10, finish 6th. I don't think that's insane to think. So I'm more favorable on the Badgers, I guess, than you are by a hair. Not by much, though. I'm with you that they're easily notches below the top few teams in this conference. And then I think there are teams that, like Iowa, and Illinois, I actually have slated ahead of Wisconsin. I think Illinois finishes 5th. But Indiana I have at 7. And you could definitely flip-flop those two. Indiana, you could argue, has more talent than Wisconsin. So we'll see. But in any case, moving on to the top 3, finishing with the top 3 from a year ago. Michigan was 3rd, 30-7 overall. That's obviously very solid. You're playing 37 games. You're doing something right. 15-5 in conference. You win 15 games in the Big Ten, you're doing something right. They got a 2 seed. If you're a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, you're doing something right. So that said, John Beilein left to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's, we talked about that in depth when it happened months and months and months ago. But he's out. Juwan Howard is in. Obviously, and this is not breaking news to any, Big Ten fan, especially Michigan fan. But so we'll see what Juwan Howard can do as a head coach at Michigan. He has never been a head coach, period. He has spent a lot of time, and I know just from what I've heard, he is a smarter dude. And he spent a lot of time in the NBA on the bench learning from head coaches. So I think the knowledge is there. I think it's different when you're a head coach. I think it's different when you're a head coach in college. And recruiting is different. I'll say this, that he has already landed a 5-star prospect for 2020. So he's Juwan Howard. It's Michigan. It doesn't come as a surprise to me that kids are buying in early saying, hey, this is a Michigan guy. He's part of the family.
No, I never thought he'd have a problem recruiting, Kevin, ever.
Right.
The name alone will be able to bring in 5 stars. My problem is, can he coach them up?
Right.
Can he coach at the college level to project these guys and make these guys get better? And I'm sure the promise is, hey, I'm a former Wolverine. I'm a former NBA player. I was on an NBA staff. I know what to do. That's great. To me, it's all lip service until it's done.
Right.
And I mean, but do you fault the kid when you got Howard sitting in your living room and his pedigree and his resume? Right now he's got to get it while the picking is ripe. He is right now a hot commodity name. He's got the resume, and early in the season, again, cupcake schedule, it's unblemished, right? We'll see what happens. But right now, when you're out there recruiting, I don't blame him. Go after every 5-star you can. Your resume is so good right now. Your name is so hot. You haven't screwed up anything yet because you really haven't been tested as a coach. And right now, kids are going to sign on the dotted line because you are Juwan Howard. That's it. You can get me to the NBA. You've been there. You know what it takes. Hasn't done a thing, Kevin, in my mind. But again, I don't fault him for that. He should be going after every 5-star he can and using this, what's the word I want to look for? This excitement around Michigan basketball to lock these guys in. But again, we also got to remember, Kevin, a lot of times verbal commitments right now, you're talking to a junior. What if they fall flat on their face this year, which I don't think they will. They've got to, in my mind, unless he is a total mess up, I mean, this is a team that should do okay. I mean, they've got talent on this roster. But, yeah, if I'm Howard, I'm going after every 5-star, and I'm talking the talk because they have nothing to compare it to right now. There's no, well, what's the result of your recruiting class from 3 years? You don't have one. It's your first gig, and you got the pedigree. Go after it. So if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm like, yeah, excitement. I'm going to buy into this right now. And if I'm a recruit, I'm buying into it too. Like, what do I have to lose right now? Howard wants me to play at Michigan. Wow, what a privilege. So go for it. I wanted to throw that in there, my friend.
Yeah, some of these kids' dads can grow up a Michigan fan and watch Juwan Howard kill it. And, you know, he walks in the living room and you're like, yeah, my son's going to play for you. Like, without a question. But so that's what he brings to the table. For me personally, I have Michigan finishing 8th in the Big Ten this year. Again, they have some talent, but you do have a new head coach, and you lost 3 players to the NBA. You bring your point guard back, Xavier Simpson, who's unbelievable defensively. Offensively, very limited. And as far as another returner, they do bring back John Teskey. But that's the thing is this team lost 3 legitimate scorers in Jordan Poole, Charles Matthews, Ignas Brazdeikis, all to the NBA. And when you lose 3 scorers like that, it's kind of like Virginia this year. Like Virginia lost, I think, 3 really good players from its team a year ago, and it's like they're going to take a step back. They may still be really good because they're Virginia, and maybe I'm too harsh on the Wolverines, and maybe they are still really good. I just don't think they're going to be really good this year. I just think they're going to be solid. And do they make the NCAA tournament? It's possible. But depending on probably what happens to me, my projection, and, call me an idiot if you want, but I think they're sitting there on the bubble, and it just matters how many upsets there are in other conference tournaments, which we talked about on the other show that we did to start this preview. So that's where I'm at with Michigan. Again, Simpson is back as a point guard, phenomenal leader, phenomenal defensively. Teskey, 7'1" big.
Old school point guard. I love Xavier Simpson. He reminds me of the old school guy that digs his shoes into the court and says, come on, I'm going to take you on one-on-one, my friend. That's what I think. He's an old school point guard to me, and I love it. Yeah. I'm an old guy. Yeah. I like those old guys. And I want to throw this out here before we end up Michigan. Teskey, I think, made a name for him in the NCAA tournament last year. But really, go back. What has Teskey done for Michigan basketball, Kevin? Before the tournament, he was like a rebounder. He was a guy you put in defensively, and now he's going to be asked to carry the load in the middle as that dominant big. This is a team to me, like I said, Kevin, when I was going off about Howard and his recruiting, it's great. You can bring in all these guys you want. But if you don't have success on the court, your recruiting efforts are not going to matter. Because especially if you recruited a junior this year and you got a verbal commitment, that's fine. You got them down lower, probably a little lower than I do. I got these guys a little bit ahead of Wisconsin because they do have Teskey in the middle. He's to me a dominant rebounder. So at least you got a guy, you got a rim protector in Teskey, and he's leading the team in scoring right now. But who have they played? I'm not impressed with the schedule and the results. I don't think you see Teskey at 16 points a game throughout the Big Ten season. No way. I don't believe it. It's not going to happen.
I hope you had something. I hope not, because they need other scorers. And if Teskey's averaging 16 a game, that doesn't mean other players are averaging 18, 20. I don't think that's the case. And that's my issue with this team is Teskey was kind of a role guy a year ago, and now he's expected to be the man in the middle and, offense runs through me and I'm the top scorer. I don't believe in that, personally. And I really like John Teskey as a player, but it's helpful when Teskey is a much better defender than he is an offensive player. And
that's where I was going with that, Kevin. Before the NCAA tournament, when he had those games that he scored last year, that's if Teskey was in the game, he was in the game to get rebounds. That was his role. That's what he did, and that's why I said, to me, this team, Kevin, is maybe a hair above Wisconsin because of Teskey. And so where did I have Wisconsin? As a bubble team. Where do I have Michigan? As a bubble team. Because it's going to be hard for them to find scoring too. And so all of a sudden, now you're playing against an Ohio State. You get into a game that's in the 80s. Where's it coming from? A modest 35% three-point shooting team is what they're at right now. And if you're going to rely on the outside shot, again, you know what happens. At least they got Teskey to rebound. This is not a team to me, Kevin, that's going to battle the tops, the Michigan States, the Purdues, the Ohio States, and consistently be able to win those games. They could pull off 1-2 wins up there, but to me, this is a bubble team. And this is it's funny. We're going to be down to our last two teams. And I know that the Big Ten had a record-setting year last year with number of teams they sent to the Big Ten tournament. I'm not so high on that number this year, going that deep. This may be more around the 5-6 range because you do have a lot of bubble teams, and when you have a lot of bubble teams, they're going to beat each other up in the conference, and now maybe a 9-11 conference record doesn't look so impressive to the committee. That's all I got.
Yeah, things, 9-11 a year ago doesn't mean 9-11 this year necessarily. So I'm with you there. I just think this team takes a step back majorly offensively, and then defensively, I don't think they're as good either. I think Simpson's phenomenal defensively, and Teskey in college right now is phenomenal defensively. But I think this team wants to probably hang its hat on its defense, and this team was a top 2 defensive team to me a year ago, top 5 at the worst. And I just don't think it's going to be at that level this year. So that's why I expect a drop-off, in my opinion. Moving to Purdue, 26-10 a year ago, 16-4 in the Big Ten, though. They did very well in conference. Obviously, they got a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, even though they finished ahead of Michigan. But that's just the way things go. Sometimes, so for Purdue, when you lose a guy like Carson Edwards, who you can make the argument was the best guard, scorer, shooter in college basketball last year. Everyone saw that in the NCAA tournament when he was basically averaging 40 a game, and that's like not an exaggeration. He was an unbelievable shooter, and as a Boston Celtics fan, I'm very happy that he is there. So you lose Carson Edwards, and you lose Ryan Klein, who also made, I don't remember how many threes. Yeah, I think against Virginia, I think he made like 8, 9, something ridiculous.
That guy got abducted by aliens.
He
literally got abducted by. Yeah, he couldn't miss. He was shooting that. He was getting it. I mean, I thought he could shoot a no-look 3-pointer in that game. He just couldn't miss. He squared up, and everything he shot went in.
There's no question in my mind that those two were the best pair of three-point shooters in college basketball last year. No question in my mind. Like, none. Absolutely. Both were, I'm sure, over 40%, and when they got hot, it's over. I mean, they crushed somebody last year. I don't remember who it was, but they annihilated someone by like 30. And I'm very curious. I want to look it up now because I remember from a year ago thinking, like, holy Lord, because this team just got so hot from three. Just seeing in the NCAA tournament, like, they scored 99 points against a 2-seed in Tennessee. They beat Villanova by 26 points in the tournament a year ago. Who was it that they just nailed a year ago? I should have done this before the show. They beat Ohio State by 35. That was one. I thought there was someone else. I'm not necessarily seeing it here, but maybe it was that Ohio State game. I don't know. But there were a number of games where it's like this team is just insane. And against Iowa, they scored 86 points, and Iowa's defense was better last year. Point being, this team a year ago could shoot the ball, and they lost those two best shooters. They lost Grady Eifert as well, who was more of a role player, but played a role. Tyler Eifert's little brother, actually, from the NFL. So this team this year goes 8 deep, probably can go 10 deep. Jihad Proctor is the leading scorer, and nobody probably knows who that is because he's a grad transfer from High Point. So I had no idea who he was, until I looked further into who this team is this year. But so he's averaging 16 a game, one of those fifth-year guys who played at a lower-level college and got better and got overlooked probably as a recruit and now can play at Purdue and score 15 a game. That happens.
Well, let's slow down there, though, youngster. You can play at Purdue and score 15 points a game, right? No, they played Texas and Marquette, but yeah, you got Green Bay in there and you got Chicago in there.
No,
I mean, this guy. Welcome to the Big Ten, Mr. Proctor.
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to be the guy.
That's my thing is,
My point on this team was going to be last year this team could drop 90 on you without blinking.
Yeah.
They could drop 90 on you. Like you said, they got hot, they'd drop 90 on you. This year, this team is going to struggle to get points. Their 90 points is not going to be a norm. 90 points last year, It wasn't a norm. I mean, they didn't average 90, but they could drop 90. I don't see this team getting close to 90.
No.
When we're talking Big Ten play, now against Chicago they scored 93. But I think there's going to be a lot of Big Ten teams that could score 90 against Chicago.
Right.
But in reality, you look at that Marquette game. We just talked about the Badgers taking care of Marquette and taking care of them good. Purdue lost 65-55, 55 points. They lost
55
to Texas.
Against
they
an
scored
offensive team.
Yeah, 66 against Texas. They scored. They scored now. They scored 79 against Green Bay, and I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Green Bay, a respectable mid-major D1 program. They play these Big Ten teams because of proximity, and the outcome 79-57, normal for Green Bay. But you just look when they're playing against a Marquette team. That's, I guess, to me the biggest measuring stick of how this team is going to compete in the Big Ten. 55 points. Because you look at this roster, Kevin, and again, I always kind of smile that it's our fourth year doing this. I actually had to look at the roster this year, Kevin, and was like, who's on Purdue this year? I know Harms. I mean, Harms is a guy I know, but then you go down, you got Proctor, Harms, Hunter, Stefanovic, Wheeler, Williams, Eastern, Thompson, Boudreaux. Who's scaring you on this team? There's no scary names this year. First time in 4 years, there's no scary names on this roster.
I agree.
I look at this team and say, whew, it is maybe rebuilding time. Now, these guys might play above expectations, might be better than I think because they really didn't have their chance over the last couple of years because of the guys that were ahead of them. but still, the only guy that got extended time out of this group was Harms. Other than that, you got guys that maybe played a few minutes here and there, but nobody had a major role in those deep tournament runs.
Noel Eastern he started a year ago as a guard, but he's purely defense. I mean, I think 2 years ago, personally, I thought he was the best defender in college basketball. Last year, obviously, I thought the same thing. But he's a guard, and he's with Xavier Simpson, just complete defense, zero shot whatsoever. So, he's there. He's a leader. Unbelievable defensively. Awesome to have on the team. But, again, points-wise, hopefully Proctor averages 16 a game because Harms, 10, 11, 12. Eric Hunter was a freshman a year ago. Like you said, you kind of have to look up these guys, and it's like, where'd they come from? Are they a freshman? Or, have they been in the program for a while? Did they transfer? Stefanovic, zero bells in my head rang when I was looking at this team and his name. Aaron Wheeler is a role player. Travion Williams is a forward. He's another guy that lost a ton of weight the last couple of years. I like his upside, but, again, this team is going to be searching for scoring, and I'm with you to finish my little spiel here on Purdue. I have them 9th in the conference, and, I think they are under Wisconsin. I think they are under Indiana. I think they are under Michigan. I think they are toward the back end of that middle of the pack. I think they're better than Northwestern and Rutgers and Nebraska and Penn State, but, outside of that, they're a lower-tier, middle-of-the-pack team to me this year. I don't think they make the NCAA tournament, and last year I thought they could have won the whole thing based on the way they were playing. And
it's a facelift. That's why. It's a facelifted roster, my friend.
Yeah, they were 1 second away from beating Virginia. They should have beaten Virginia. But Virginia pulled out some Houdini act and, brought it to overtime and did what they did. But, yeah, last year was last year's team, and this year is going to be much different. That's really all I have. Matt Harms is 7'3", by the way. That's the 7'3" guy that I mentioned before that we would be talking about. So. Yeah,
but here's the thing: 7'3", Kevin. It's all how you use your 7'3" frame. Can excuse my slip of the tongue? Can a 6'11" guy be more effective than a 7'3" Harms? Certainly.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, Harms is a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's not a dominant player inside that I'm going to sit here and be like, well, we've got to focus all our defensive attention on Matt Harms. No. Is he going to score 8 to 12 points? Yeah. Is he going to drop a 20 game here and there? Sure. When things are going right, maybe getting some offensive rebounds, some putbacks, getting into paint against a weaker team that can't post up in the middle, a.k.a. Wisconsin team. Maybe they feed Harms, and Harms drops down 22 against Wisconsin. He's going to have his 20-point games, but on a nightly average, I think this guy's going to give you 8 to 12, and probably same in the rebounding category, 8 to 12 in rebounding. I don't think he's a double-double average guy, but this guy's going to be in the paint. He is a big body in the middle, but to me, he's not a dominating body in the middle. So we'll see what happens.
He's a lot taller, imposing than he is wide, imposing. There's a difference between a 6'10" big who's wide and thick and can manhandle you on the boards, and 7'3" Matt Harms, who sounds ridiculously imposing, but he's skinny. His game is not to bang down low and back you into the basket and dunk on you. So it's just what you have to know about certain players. He is not a big body in that sense. Obviously, at 7'3", you can call him big, but depends. Especially basketball. There's plenty of different ways to play the game as a big, and he is definitely more of the stretch kind, so to say, and use his length as opposed to physical dominance in terms of weight and pushing you around. But yeah, that's all I got on Purdue. Really, it's just a major step back, and honestly, I think they're on the outside looking in as far as the NCAA tournament's concerned. Unless you got more.
We might. I was going to say we might have a number of Big Ten teams on the outside looking in come selection time.
Maybe.
Again, it all depends. We never know. It all depends on what happens across America, and it all depends on how these middle teams do in the Big Ten. We know, Kevin? Here's the thing: we're talking today. We're talking on November 20th. Come February, we know that one of these teams we're talking about has surprised us and has separated themselves from the middle of the pack. Is it the Iowa? Is it the Wisconsin? Is it the Purdue? I mean, as we talk today, we're just giving you the facts that we have. But there's going to be one of those teams in that middle pack that is right up there saying, we're knocking on the door to the top three. We're not quite there because we're the best of the middle. But there's going to be one surprise team, Kevin, out of this group we just talked about that is going to take us all by surprise and be like, wow, we're having a magical run. And it'll be interesting to see who it is.
Yeah, and even Ohio State coming into this year, nobody thought they were on the same level as Michigan State, Maryland, and yet they're already number 10 in the country. It was not supposed to be a 3-team race. It was supposed to be a 2-team race. And then 3 through 11 were kind of fighting. That was the thought. I don't think this conference goes 11 strong deep, but that's just me personally.
I'll correct your grammar. Do I think it's 11 competitive deep? Yes.
Sure.
Competitiveness, I think you've got 11 teams, and when you start talking 3 through 11 competitiveness, and that can be a good thing for the conference, but it can also be a bad thing, right, Kevin? So if number 11 can knock off number 3, that's great. Sounds great for the conference, but what does it do? I'm going to go back to what you said. 9-11 last year does not mean 9-11 this year in the committee's eyes. And so if 10 and 11 are beating 3 and 4, and you've got a bunch of teams sitting at 10 and 10, 9 and 11, 8 and 12, but you've got 9, 10, and 11 that are just as good as 4 and 5. That doesn't bode well for teams 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah, that bodes well for the guys up top. Doesn't bode well for those teams sitting at 9 and 11. I really do believe, Kevin, that we're back with this 20-game schedule, that if you get to 10 and 10 in the Big Ten in conference play, I don't want to say you're guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed for the selection committee. But a 10 and 10 record in the Big Ten, 20-game conference schedule, pretty darn close. You've got that invitation dangling in front of your face. It's there for the taking. 9 and 11, a lot of things need to play out. You got to make sure that you are a dominant team. You've won your non-conference games. And again, there can't be a lot of upsets across America to get that at-large bid. But I think 10 and 10 probably gets you in the NCAA tournament. And it goes back to the old days where you finished 500 in the conference, more than likely you got into the big dance. And I think 10 wins in the conference, I think gets you in the big dance. You might totally disagree with me. That's where I'm at, though, Kevin.
I agree with you 100%. I think 10 and 10 is almost a lock at this point. Barring a very down year in the Big Ten, I think that's almost a lock. I personally, if I had to guess right now, I think 7 teams make it to the NCAA tournament. But that's my preseason guess, that 7 teams make it. So, anyway, let's move on to Michigan State here to finish this up. For some of you listening, you may have skipped to this point, skipped to the end, and said, "Okay, can you just talk about the Spartans now?" So, here's the final 10 minutes or so on Michigan State. 32-7 a year ago, 16-4 in conference, tied with Purdue for a conference record at 16-4. But they finished first based on tiebreakers, based on head-to-head, based on yada yada. Got a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, so no 1 seed for the Big Ten a year ago. But Michigan State this year, they lost to Kentucky by 7 on opening night, and then Kentucky lost to, I don't even remember who it was, Evansville, I think, a few nights ago. But so at Michigan State, basically everyone thought they were the number 1 team coming into the year, but they were not the number 1 team coming into the year as far as, Michigan State's just so much better than everyone else, and, everyone else hopes to catch Michigan State. I don't think that was the thinking, and that's not my thinking anyway. And I think we saw it on opening night that Kentucky could be right there and beat them. You can say Michigan State's the best team in the country, and I'm not going to argue that. I wouldn't necessarily, another team as say that another team is more complete at this point, but, they are beatable. They showed last year they were beatable by teams like Illinois. So when Illinois was not supposed to do well. So anyway, this year, they did lose Nick Ward on the inside. They lost Kenny Goins from the inside. From the outside, they lost Matt McQuaid as a guard. Those three guys will definitely be missed for sure. But when you still have Cassius Winston, when you still have Aaron Henry, when you still have Xavier Tillman, when you still have Kyle Ahrens, hopefully Josh Langford comes back. Just those five guys. And then you bring in a freshman guard in Rocket Watts, who is named appropriately, being named Rocket because he is, if you haven't seen him yet, he plays at a very fast pace. I'll say that much. So he's going to add something off the bench for this team, undoubtedly. They have their backup point guard back as well, Foster Lawyer. So this team's got a number of guards even without Josh Langford. But guys like Xavier Tillman on the inside, it's truly his show to, I am the Michigan State big, and he is not physically imposing in terms of being 6'11" and being super wide, but he is, if I had to guess, I haven't looked. If I had to guess, I'd say he's 6'9", a 6'9" power forward type of guy. Maybe he's 6'10", but he does very well around the basket. Very good rebounder. I know, Troy, you like him.
How about 6'8"? 6'8", 245 is what he's listed as.
There you go, 6'8".
Which means which probably means he's 6'7".
I don't know if he's that small. I would have guessed 6'9". So I maybe he is 6'7", because you're right.
And you're right. I love Xavier Tillman as a fan. I enjoy watching his game. Part of the reason, and I think any of our loyal listeners, and if you're new listening in, I'm an older guy. I like old school players that aren't afraid to get in there, that aren't afraid to beef it up under the boards. But this guy's just athletic, Kevin. So we talk about, we talk about Harms, and then we talk about Tillman. You got 7'3" or 6'8". Who a casual basketball fan is going to say, well, I'd rather have a 7'3". No, I'd rather have Tillman.
Right.
I'd rather have a 6'8" guy. This guy's athletic, and he can do a lot. This is a guy that can score, he can rebound, he can assist, and he can play defense. He's an all-around player. I just enjoy watching him play. And then, of course, you throw in Winston in this mix. It's probably maybe one of the best 1-2 punches that there is in the country. I mean, these guys play together. They're on the same page. They're coached by Tom Izzo. And, oh, by the way, Kevin, do you know who else is on the roster?
Who's that?
I just noticed it today. Steven Izzo, freshman guard.
Oh, nice. I see that as I look on the page there. He's on the bottom, getting 2 minutes a game.
Yeah, I can't imagine Mr. Steven Izzo being too much of a contributor on this team. And there's another coach's son on this team, though, too. A little Hoiberg's on this team, too.
I saw that. Yeah.
So, my back to my point, though. You just look at this. I also like Gabe Brown, Kevin. Gabe Brown, I call him like the mini Tillman. He's like a mini Tillman to me. This Michigan State team, Kevin, to me, we've talked over the years, the dominating names and the guys that they have. Losing Langford is a huge loss. Yeah. I just look at this roster, though, and we've always talked about so-and-so and so-and-so. I like this Michigan State team. Right. Kevin. Team. Yeah. I look at this year, and this might even be scarier than the team 2 years ago to me, because I'm looking at a team. And 4 games in, 3-1, you're looking at Winston, Tillman, and Henry, 17, 12, and 11 respectively. Scoring is distributed. Don't have to count on Winston. Don't have to count on Tillman. I told you I like Gabe Brown. He's right there, 8.5 points, 3.3 rebounds a game. Brown is going to be the afterthought of many games because of the Winston and Tillman factor. Don't forget about Gabe Brown. I want people listening to this show right now on November 20th or whenever you listen to it, remember the name Gabe Brown. He's going to step up in big games, Kevin, when teams are trying to shut down Tillman. They're giving Winston fits. They've got to find a third guy. Gabe Brown's going to be your guy. Like I said, he's a mini Tillman to me. And that's what scares me about Michigan State this year. It's not that they have the Winston. It's not that they have the Tillman. This is a good team. This is going to be just a team that's going to be hard to play. It's going to be a solid team. And you look early, and again, people are going to look at stat lines. And like I said, I'm happy today I get to actually sit in front of a computer, look at stats while we're talking. I mean, I'm sure Izzo's already on this team. Like, we're not that good. We're shooting 29% from three-point land. 29%. Not good enough. Got to get better.
Mm-hmm.
But they got the guys inside where they can get the extra possession. Henry, Brown, Tillman. They're going to give Michigan State probably 3 or 4 additional possessions from getting offensive rebounds. And many of those might be going right back up in the hoop. But if not, they're going to extend possessions on team. And we all know Tom Izzo teams, they're going to be good on defense. To me, Kevin, hands down, this is the most dominant team in the Big Ten. Are they going to stumble? Are they going to go through their hills and valleys? There may be 1 or 2 during the season, but I think this is a team. I don't want to say they're going to run away with the Big Ten. I don't think anybody ever runs away with the Big Ten. But really, where's the competition? Maryland, we talked about that earlier. They could take down Michigan State at time. Could Ohio State take down Michigan State? Yeah. I don't think Michigan State rolls through the conference at 20-0, but I believe that you're looking at worst, 17-3, maybe 16-4.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't see them stumbling more than 3 or 4 times in the conference. And then I look at a Maryland. Could I see Maryland at 15-5, 16-4? Yes, somewhere in there. And Ohio State is an unproven commodity, Kevin. So far, so good, right? But are they getting 17 wins in the Big Ten? Maybe. But it's not a proven commodity to me. I think you see a team like Ohio State in that 15-16 range, and maybe you even see a Michigan State team, Kevin, that finishes 18-2. Because when we go back, and if everybody's listened in this long, we appreciate it. Look at all the teams you talked about, Kevin. The Purdue's, the Wisconsin, the Iowas. Are these teams taking down Michigan State on a nightly basis? No. Should Michigan State take them down? Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if in March we're talking about an 18-2 Big Ten Michigan State team. It probably won't be, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about 18-2. More realistic, probably 16-4, 17-3. But if they rolled up 18 wins, I'd be like, I don't think that's surprising to me. It's capable because this Michigan State team is good. That's all I got, my friend.
If Aaron Henry is your third best player, and you mentioned Gabe Brown, but I love Aaron Henry. He's an NBA guy. I think Cassius Winston's in the NBA. I think Xavier Tillman's in the NBA. Aaron Henry is very good, and I like Aaron Henry a lot. You like Gabe Brown a lot. Again, point to the schedule through 4 games, but you've got Kentucky in there. And I think this is the key, is that when your third and fourth best players are shooting 63 and 51% from the field, and even their fifth leading scorer shoots 85% from the field right now, that'll obviously come down. But if those guys are just efficient and you can count on them to be your third and fourth and fifth pieces, that's what makes this team just rock solid offensively, and then defensively they're going to be more than just rock solid as well. So, like you, I like Maryland a lot. I think they're fun to watch. I love the players they have. But Michigan State, top to bottom, and again, this team goes legitimately 10 deep. No questions asked. They've got depth, they've got bigs, they've got guards, they've got experience, they've got shooters. This team was ranked number 1 in the country coming in for a reason. So I will leave it at that, unless I check my notes here and there's something I missed, and there's not. So if Josh Langford comes back, that was
a quick note check. Check them. Nope, got it all.
I just had to click the tab. I was like, am I? No, I'm not missing anything. But yeah, Josh Langford, if he comes back, that's just the cherry on top. To me, they are easily the best team in the country if he comes back and he's healthy and they're rolling into March with a full lineup.
Oh, I don't disagree. I mean, if Langford comes back, here's the thing, Kevin. You got Langford as a fan. You and I both want him to come back. We talked about this on a show, 3 weeks ago. He's got to do what's best for him. If he feels he's ready to come back and can contribute and help this team win a national championship or at least compete to win one, so be it. I don't force myself back if I'm Langford because he'll be playing at the next level. And, you know, you need to be 100% sure. You know, Kevin, you and I were both athletes. I probably came back sooner than I should a number of times, and it was just nagging from there on out. I was never at the level where I needed an injury, where I need to save my body for 10 years from now because we're playing at the next level. But I came back because I love to play. And in the off season, I'm sitting here and just like, man, my ankle hurts or my knee hurts because I came back and I should I have rested and maybe missed a game? Yeah, maybe I should have, but I played through it. And if you're a Langford and you're looking at it, we always talk about this. Sometimes you do have to look out for yourself. This is an injury that happened a year ago, came back, and now re-aggravated it. He's got to look out for himself. You don't want to have this lingering injury. If you're going to be a player in the NBA, and it's so hard to get to the NBA, he's got to look out for himself. As a greedy basketball fan, I want him to come back. Yeah, I want him to be back for Big Ten play in January. Come back, Mr. Langford. I want to watch you play. But when you look at the reality of it, he's got to do what's right for him and not force himself back early just because he wants to help his team. You know, and maybe he does, and that's his decision. But we'll see what happens. But this team would be so dynamic. I mean, hands down, would be the favorite to win the title. And even without him, they're a favorite to win a title. I mean, this is a team that we just talked about. They have the pieces to make a run. But again, you never know what March is going to hold for us, youngster. What else you got?
That's it. I'm done.
All right. Wrap it up. Tell people where they can find our stuff.
Yes. At Youngster Old Man on Twitter, Facebook.com/YoungsterOldMan. So the social media stuff, just Youngster Old Man, and you'll find us. Also, youngsteroldman.home.blog is our home webpage that we have, thanks to Troy. And also thegrowingtruth.com is probably where you're listening to this, but if you're listening to it on Twitter, you could do that as well. Follow the link there. Again, Youngster Old Man on Twitter, Facebook, those are our bread and butters, so to say.
Yeah, and we're out there. And don't get sick of me posting DraftKings Sportsbook stuff. I really do enjoy it, especially once once Big Ten season gets going. I got to pad my bankroll, youngster. I'll be doing I'll be doing a lot. I'll be doing a lot of stuff when Big Ten basketball rolls around. Hope you enjoyed the show, everyone. Stay tuned because we will be doing this show for the 4th year, week in and week out. Right now it's a fun time of year, Kevin. We got football, but once football is done, it's all basketball. So the next month or so, we got Big Ten football, we got Big Ten basketball. We dabble in the other sports if something big comes up that we need to talk about. If you want us to talk about one of the other Big Ten sports, you know where to find us on Twitter at Youngster Old Man. If you want to hear about Big Ten hockey, let Youngster and I know. We will do our research and bring Big Ten hockey to the show. So let us know what you want to hear about at Youngster Old Man. We don't know if you don't tell us. Hope you enjoyed the show today, everybody. For the Youngster, I am the Old Man. We'll get back at you next week, same place, same time.